Hello and welcome to this video on building our first process with UiPath Studio. The automation process that we're building merges data from multiple Excel reports into one and creates a pivot table and a chart based on the consolidated data. For a thorough understanding, we highly recommend following each step and building along in Studio. You can pause the video at any time to build at your own pace. All set? Great! Let's get started. Our first step is to create a new process. We'll provide a name and click Create. While the process is initializing, let's look at our input data. We have a total of 5 coffee shop reports, displaying data for the item, unit price, item sold, and total income columns. Each Excel report file contains 10 records or rows. Perfect! Our process is now created. Before adding activities, let's add 2 new folders in our project. The first folder to hold our input reports and the second folder to hold our output consolidated report file. To create the folders, we right-click the project name in the project panel, select Add, and choose Folder. Now let's provide a meaningful name to save the input files. Next, we perform the same steps to create the folder to hold the output file. Now, we'll open our input folder, Daily Reports, and add the 5 Excel files. Next, let's open the main workflow and start building. Since we're working with Excel files, let's add an Excel process scope activity. This enables us to select an Excel file to use in the automation using a Use Excel File activity. As best practice, we'll annotate this activity to describe our workflow. Next, we'll add the Use Excel File activity. As a best practice, let's rename the activities. The workbook path requires us to indicate the location of the folder where we want to create and save our output file. Since we've already created an output folder, let's indicate it by opening the Advanced Editor. Here we specify the folder name and the name of the Excel file that we want to create. As our output file stores the daily sales data for the 5 coffee shops, we'll include the current date in the file name. As a result, identification will be easier. For this, we are using datetime.now function, and we're going to convert the output of this function into a specific string format. At the very end, we'll specify the extension of the file. Notice that we don't have to specify the full path, as we've created the folder within the project folder. Now click OK. In the Reference As field, we specify how we intend to refer to this file in other activities. Since we need to refer to the sales results file, let's run the process now to create it. Click Debug File, then Run. The sales result Excel file has now been created. To later use it, we must click the Template File checkbox. Navigate to where it's stored and select it. Perfect! The next step is to write the header or column names in the output file. For this, let's add a Write Cell activity. In the What to Write field, we enter the name of our first column, Item, and in the Where to Write field, we select our sales results output file and indicate the cell where we want to write the column name. Here, we select A1 and click Confirm. Let's duplicate this activity as we must perform the same steps for all the column names that we want to write in the file. Renaming the activities helps us to better understand the process. Great! Now that we've finished adding all the column names, let's format them into a header-like style using the Format Cells activity. In the Range field, we'll provide the range of cells that we want to format by indicating them in the Excel file. Next, using the Set Format option, we can set the data type, alignment, font, and fill color. Until now, we've created our output file, entering the column names, and formatted the header cells. As a next step, we'll read the data from each coffee shop report and append it to the output file. Let's add a For Each File in Folder activity to go through each file in our input folder and perform certain actions. Hence, we need to specify our input folder path. Next, let's add a Use Excel File activity to use each of the input files and perform specific actions within each file. Let's specify the Excel file name, which we want to open as currentfile.fullname, as we want to open all the files one by one. We'll also reference the files as Source Excel, as they contain our input data. Next, we must read the data from these files and append the data to the output file. To do this, let's add an Append Range activity. In the Excel Range to Append field, we'll specify the Excel range that we want to append. In this case, we have two options. We can select which Excel file to open and which part of the sheet to use. Or we can use the whole sheet. Let's go with the second option. In the Append After range, we'll choose our output file sales results. And in the What to Copy field, we'll choose values disregarding the formulas and formats. It's a good idea to exclude headers so that they don't repeat in the results. Perfect. Let's run the process. We can see that our process is reading data from the input file and appending it to the output file. Great! To not duplicate data from one execution to the other, it's better to delete the output file before running the process. For this, we'll add a delete file activity at the beginning of our process. We'll specify the location and the name of the file as we did when creating it. And annotate this activity. To fit data within a cell and make it look right in the output file, we'll add an AutoFit Range activity. We'll place it below the Append range. We can easily specify the sheet that we want to arrange. We've now completed the first part of our objective. Next, we'll create a pivot table and a chart to analyze and display the consolidated data. Let's add a Create Pivot Table activity. Set the source for the table we are going to create. Let's do this by indicating the range of data from our output file. Then we'll provide a name for the pivot table and the destination where we want to save the table. In our example, we'll choose our output file as the destination, but create a new sheet within it. Select A1 cell and click Confirm. To add fields to our pivot table, click Add Pivot Table field. Next, enter the column name we want to analyze. We'll choose Item, which is a row. Next, we'll choose Total Income, which is a value that stores the sum of incomes from all 5 shops for each item. Great! The last step is to create a chart. For this, let's add an Insert Chart activity and specify the values. For the chart category, let's select Pie as chart type. In the Data Range field, which is asking for the input range for the chart, we'll indicate Sheet 2 from our output file. Next, we'll indicate the sheet where we want to insert the chart. In our case, we'll again choose Sheet 2 from the output file. The last field, Save the Chart, allows us to use the chart in other activities of the process. We don't need this option. Perfect. Let's run the process again. It's working as expected. Let's look at the output file and verify. Our process has created a pivot table and inserted a pie chart. And in Sheet 1, we can also see the consolidated records. If we look closer at the number of records, we see a total of 40. This means that our process missed one of the 5 Excel files and therefore the data for it is missing. Do you know why this happened? Let's see how we can debug and fix this issue in the next video. Great! This concludes our demo. As a quick recap, in this video we saw how to use different activities to extract data from multiple Excel files and merge them into one. We also created a pivot table and a chart to analyze and represent the consolidated data. Can you recall the activities used to build the process? Thank you for watching, and until next time, happy automation!